We've got, across the country as a whole, over 9,000 confirmed coronavirus patients in hospital beds today, and that number is bound to increase. As it happens, we have got available intensive care and available hospital beds, but we are also bringing online additional capacity, such as these Nightingale hospitals, as we need them.
What reassurance can you give NHS staff about protective equipment, some of whom feel it just isn't there?
It is vital that frontline NHS staff get the protective equipment they need. 170 million items of that protective equipment have been shipped. It's a huge logistics exercise. The Army have been brilliant in helping, but we know we're going to need more, and the government are pulling out all the stops to procure for us that personal protective equipment that we will want over the coming days and weeks.
Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So tonight, I'm going to answer the burning question on Twitter. And then we're going to talk about why people look for stuff like that during times like these. Now, for those who are not on the platform, let me catch you up. There are a bunch of people running around right now filming the outside of their local hospital. And because the parking lots are empty, well, that's obviously proof that, you know, it's all hyped. It's overblown. It's sensationalized. It's a hoax. It's not really that bad because the parking lots are empty. Some actually went inside the hospital. This is all, you can find all of this stuff under hashtag #FilmYourHospital. I'm going to explain why that's a bad idea here in a second. But before I get to answering the important question of why the hospitals are empty, I want to draw attention to two people that helped get this theory out there. The first is Deanna Lorraine, a Republican congressional candidate from California. And her tweet was retweeted by Sarah A. Carter, a Fox News correspondent. Ms. Carter, I understand that you didn't co-sign this when you retweeted it. You just said, "It's interesting for sure, I'll be watching." But see, you're a journalist. You know everything that I'm about to say. You should. It's not interesting. You retweeting this and giving this little theory life, I don't think it was a wise decision. You should know everything I'm about to say, at least most of it. And you should also know that your viewers are pretty easily influenced. They saw you express interest in this. If people believe that it's overhyped, do you think they're going to take the precautions they need to? Journalism is supposed to be a public service. Okay, so why are the hospitals empty? Because most of the hospital's operations are shut down. Go figure. That means the parking lot's empty. Crazy, right? The Surgeon General advised that hospitals get rid of elective procedures right now. Don't do them. Most did. I think all did, actually. The emergency room is just a tiny bit of what a big hospital does. All of that other stuff, unless it's emergent or urgent related to that, it's not going on right now. Therefore, the parking lots are empty. There's no big mystery there. None. But you can play with that information for a second. That may help you determine whether or not it's serious. Hospitals have to watch their bottom line, right? And they're choosing to forgo all of the revenue from all of this other stuff and keep the beds empty because it's overhyped, because it's sensationalized, or is it because they're worried about a surge and they don't want little Timmy in there who just had his tonsils out catching something? They don't want to waste the PPE, the protective equipment, doing stuff that doesn't absolutely have to be done right now. Maybe they need the beds. Hospitals, even though they have to watch the bottom line, they also provide a public service. They're being responsible. Now, to those who went inside a hospital, the ERs, yeah, they're empty. They are. Most people who go to an ER, they're not actually having an emergency. Okay? Right now, I've talked about this on this channel before. An ER is for, oh, I cut my finger off. Not, I've had the sniffles for 3 days and now I feel like I want some meds. That's not actually an emergency. But right now, because there's a risk associated with going to the hospital and you got to be certain kind of stupid to go without reason, people are kind of exercising a little more discretion. Is it really an emergency? No. Nobody's showing up with a tummy ache right now. And for the record, that's the standard. What you're using right now, that's the standard you should always use. An emergency room is for serious issues. Now, to those who went inside the hospital and wandered around filming, let me show you what you did. Because the big question is, well, why don't I see any of them? But don't worry. Because see, you took your phone and you hit record, right? And then you held it down low and walked around because you're a super secret spy and everything. And you're opening up doors and touching elevator buttons and all that stuff. Then you walked outside and grabbed your phone with the other hand and uploaded it. And then you put that phone up to your ear. Don't worry. About 2 weeks, you should probably see where the patients are. That PPE, one of the things they wear is called an isolation gown. From that, what can you infer? That people are in isolation. No, they're not going to be hanging out in the hallways. They're going to be in different rooms, hopefully, because maybe this person has something bad and this person just has the sniffles. They're going to try to keep them separated. Most hospitals aren't even allowing visitors anymore. So, no, you are not going to just walk in and find them and film them. And please, don't film patients. Don't do that. So that should answer the questions, at least I hope. But now we have another question. Why do people look for stuff like this? Why do they want to believe this? We've talked about it before in other videos when we talk about theories like this. The world's scary. It seems like it's out of control. And sometimes it's comforting to think that there's a group of people in control. Because then it's not just chaos. There's a plan. There's somebody out there making things happen. And it's comforting in a way to think of it like that. Yeah, I wish that it was sensationalized. I wish it was overblown. I really do. But understand the President of the United States said that he'd be doing a good job if only 100,000 people were lost. And when you compare that to those numbers at the beginning, if we did do social distancing and stuff like that, 100,000 seems all right. 100,000 in a couple months. That's more than U.S. soldiers were lost during 10 years of the Vietnam War and 10 years of Iraq and 10 years of Afghanistan, all added together. It's not overblown. You need to take the precautions. And look, you want to stand outside a hospital and film it, whatever. Enjoy your hobby. Walking around inside one, it's a bad idea on a whole bunch of levels. And since you probably don't care about other people, we'll do it this way. You'll probably pick something up that you're going to take home to people you do care about. Right now, stay at home. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. It's scary, and it's out of control. There is no curtain. There's certainly not a man behind the curtain. We're going to have to ride this out. And people like you who are running into these places and then going around town, you're the reason it's going to get real bad. You're putting a lot of people at risk with this. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good night.
In the Circuit Court of Florida, 7th Judicial Circuit, in for Flagler, Putnam, St. Johns, and Volusia counties, blah, blah, blah. Whereas our nation and state of Florida has been beset by a pandemic. Beset by a pandemic. Let me remind you of this document. Going to keep showing you this. New England Journal of Medicine. Dr. Fauci wrote this 4 days ago. COVID is ultimately akin to a seasonal flu, with a fatality rate of 0.1%. Okay? Now let me continue here. I'm going to leave you links to this, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if I can leave links to this right here. I'm not sure how to do that exactly. But here we go. It talks about blah, 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 blah. April 20th, 2020 at 8 p.m., March 30th. The order that the provisions outlined herein take effect on March 30th, that's today at 8 a.m., and expire on the 20th. And it covers all sorts of great things like Baker's Act, family law, blah, blah, blah. And right here, mandatory vaccination proceedings, enforcement of curfew orders, extraordinary writs, meaning things that are not usual whatsoever at all. All of this for something that the doctor advising our president, Dr. Anthony Fauci, see it? This isn't the Daily Mail. This is real. 0.1%. Or if you happen to get sick, because COVID is no big deal, like Richie from Boston's been telling you the entire time, now the actual chief medical dude is telling you the exact same thing. But we still need to have special writs for the courts for mandatory vaccination proceedings, curfews, and extraordinary writs, etc., 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 etc. Raul Zambrano, done and ordered, Florida, this 27th day of March 2020 in Daytona Beach, Volusia County. Now let's take a look at this. This is what our troops are getting. Military One Source, and the links will be below. This is explaining to the troops how to deal with the year-long lockdown, how to deal with being away from family and friends because of this virus, because of this pandemic that Anthony Fauci, MD, wrote in the New England Journal of Medicine. See, they're telling you one thing in the mainstream, but to each other, they're telling the truth because it's a big club, and we aren't in it. They're just going to keep extending this lockdown until people start to freak out. And people will freak out of confusion, out of hunger, out of whatever, and the troops will be in place. That's why the military is sending this out to the troops. How to deal with being away from your family during this year-long lockdown. The fact that Americans even allowed the president to tell them to get inside your house and stay there, shut down your businesses and stay there because we don't want you to catch a cold. Because it's all it is a cold. Nothing more, nothing less. This is what's going on. This is real. Richie from Boston, and I am out.